Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome if you're new. Today we have more PlayStation news, rumors, and leaks to go over and cover. So do me a favor, before we get into these topics, if you end up enjoying this video or finding it informative, be sure to leave it a like. It helps the videos out more than you know, and if you are new here to the channel, consider hitting that subscribe button as well. We're starting here talking about Hogwarts Legacy. We now know when the embargo for this game, the review embargo, is going to be lifted. This is coming from PlayStation Game Size on Twitter, and they say looks like Hogwarts Legacy's review embargo lifts on February 6th. So that's 4 days before the game's release and 1 day before the deluxe edition. And for those who don't know, if you get the deluxe edition, you get the game a couple days early. I have a feeling a lot of people are actually going to go for that edition of the game. But yeah, Hogwarts Legacy is easily going to be one of the biggest games that launches in 2023. It's going to sell really well, regardless of how it reviews, but I think people are certainly with this title going to be interested to see how it ends up reviewing, considering the supposed controversy that is surrounding it. But for me, I think Hogwarts Legacy looks great. This is one of those games where, frankly, I don't really care about the reviews. Everything I've seen of it looks like it's a top-notch game. You know, the quality is clearly there, in my opinion. But let me know your thoughts on it and how you think it's going to review. Next up, we're talking about a new report regarding E3 2023 and how apparently it's not just PlayStation that's once again going to be skipping E3, but now Xbox and Nintendo are apparently also skipping the conference. Reading from PlayStation Lifestyle, they say E3 2023, the event's first physical showcase since 2019, will apparently be marred by the games industry's biggest three companies skipping the show. According to IGN's sources, PlayStation, Xbox, and Nintendo have all decided that they won't be part of E3 this year. PlayStation hasn't had a presence at E3 for a number of years now, but Microsoft and Nintendo have traditionally maintained a booth at the annual event. Microsoft previously announced that it'll host its own Xbox event this summer, and IGN sources had confirmed that the company won't be at the E3 show floor. Nintendo, who's always attended E3 despite its direct showcases, hasn't responded to IGN's request for comment, and neither have Sony and Microsoft. However, E3 organizer ReedPop has released a statement insisting that E3 is a significant industry event, and this year it has received a tremendous amount of interest from a number of big companies. It's not known who the attendees are at this time, but we'll keep an eye out. So yeah, I definitely wanted to share this with you guys because I don't necessarily think it's surprising, but it is one of these moments where it's like, if you were somebody who was maybe holding out hope that E3 could make the big comeback that they're clearly trying to make happen here, it seems incredibly unlikely that that will be a reality. I mean, it's one thing when PlayStation isn't part of it, but it's another thing when PlayStation, Xbox, and Nintendo, the big three, are nowhere to be seen. I feel like at that point, it's nearly impossible to call this a significant industry event. For me personally, E3 was pretty much done when Sony decided that they were done with E3. That's not to say that it wasn't worth maybe paying attention to at all. Of course it was, and it might still be to a certain extent. But in the end, I think that this is ultimately kind of sad. I feel like E3 was a really cool time, you know, for games and the gaming industry. And it's just not what it used to be. It hasn't been that for a very long time. And unfortunately, now it looks like it's really in the worst spot it's ever been in. You know, other than when they had to basically cancel it. But yeah, I just don't think it's going to be able to make that comeback that maybe some people were hoping for. So let me know your thoughts on that. Next up, I just want to very briefly let you know that MLB The Show 2023 has officially been announced. Once again, for those who maybe don't know, although I think everybody is aware at this point, it's now a multi-platform game. MLB The Show is no longer exclusive to PlayStation, so it's going to be releasing on Xbox and Nintendo Switch as well, and it is also going to be releasing day and date onto Game Pass, which is always weird to acknowledge because it's a Sony first-party developed game, but as we know, that deal that's made with Microsoft is with the MLB, not Sony themselves. But I think something that a lot of PlayStation fans have maybe been hoping for is that because MLB The Show has been releasing into Game Pass, maybe Sony will at some point want to consider releasing it into PlayStation Plus. But it is worth noting that apparently MLB The Show sales on PlayStation have not dropped at all, even when it went multi-platform, even when it became available through Game Pass. It seems like people who are, buying this game on PlayStation are very much happy to do so. So take that for what it is, but the game is out on March 28th. Moving on from that, we are talking about a significant report, in my opinion, regarding PlayStation VR 2. Apparently, Sony had to come out and deny a Bloomberg report that seemed to indicate Sony cut their numbers in half and had to lower their expectations sales-wise. Reading from PlayStation Lifestyle, it says Sony has denied they have cut production numbers of the PSVR 2 headset ready for its launch in February. The statement follows earlier reports that shipment forecasts have been halved due to a disappointing number of PSVR 2 pre-orders, primarily because of its high cost and slow uptake of VR technology. Sony aimed to produce 2 million headsets ready for the launch on February 22, 2023, and the company denied that this has changed when questioned by GamesIndustry.biz. They went on to say that they are seeing enthusiasm from PlayStation fans for the upcoming launch, which includes more than 30 titles such as Gran Turismo 7, Horizon Call of the Mountain, and Resident Evil Village. And so again, this report originally came from Bloomberg, and they said that Sony had to revise their predicted sales figures to go on to say that they're only going to sell 1.5 million units between April 2023 and March 2024, basically saying it's because, pre-order numbers are low, the headset's too expensive, people are not as interested in it. And so I also want to point out here that Christopher Dring from GamesIndustry.biz put a tweet out, and he says, "To be clear, Sony outright told me, quote, we have not cut PlayStation VR 2 production numbers," end quote. There was no nuance in that. And this is important to highlight because a lot of times Sony remains quiet with these types of things, right? Even though we have seen reports in the past that have turned out to be untrue in the long run, this is something that Sony felt was important enough to immediately just squash. And I actually appreciate it because you already know that this would have continued to make the rounds and make it seem like, well, I guess, PSVR 2 is DOA and it's going to fail out of the gate. But no, Sony is coming out here and making it clear that there's just no truth to this report. So there you go. At this point, honestly, I think it's safe to say that when it comes to Bloomberg, it's just not worth listening to any of their reports when it comes to PlayStation, because if I'm not mistaken, this is not the first time that they've put out a report regarding PlayStation that just ended up being false. But, I wanted to let you guys know about this, let you know that Sony cleared it up in case you happen to see things floating around. Moving on to the next topic, though, we're talking about PlayStation CEO Jim Ryan. This is coming from PlayStation Universe, where they say, according to Reuters, Jim Ryan, president and CEO of Sony Interactive Entertainment, on Wednesday met with EU antitrust boss Margrethe Vestager to discuss Microsoft's proposed buyout of publishing giant Activision Blizzard. The report says that the EU is expected to issue the Xbox format holder with a charge sheet detailing its concerns regarding the acquisition. It adds that Microsoft is hoping to appease EU regulators in the hope of shortening the regulatory process, but the EU is reportedly not open to remedies without releasing its charge sheet first. So this is something that's been making the rounds, and once again, we are continuing to see Sony do certain things to maybe help their case here, right? I mean, we have to understand at the end of the day, if this acquisition ends up getting blocked, it's not Sony's doing. Sony doesn't necessarily have much power here other than, meeting with these individuals and trying to, I guess, let them know their side of it, let them know why they think it shouldn't go through. And at the end of the day, it's going to be up to the regulatory bodies to determine whether or not they're going to greenlight this or block it. But I have to imagine that Microsoft is not at all happy to hear that Jim Ryan is having these personal meetings and flying out to make this happen. You do have to wonder what's being said behind closed doors. But there you go. Figured I would give you guys that update. Next up, we're talking about Naughty Dog. First of all, we are learning from Neil Druckmann that Naughty Dog has now grown over to 400 developers. This is worth pointing out because it goes to show that they've been growing quite rapidly. Just 2 years ago, they were at 300 developers. So they really are becoming a bigger studio overall, and he does confirm once again that they are working on multiple projects. This isn't news. We know that they've been working on multiple projects, but when you combine that with the 400 number, it makes you realize that they certainly are working on more than just 1 or 2 projects at any given time. They likely have quite a few different things that are always going on at the studio. So figured I would let you guys know about that, give you an update on just how big Naughty Dog has grown. But we also have more good news regarding The Last of Us HBO. It just continues to grow. Reading from Push Square, it says 6.4 million people tuned in to watch the 3rd episode of HBO's The Last of Us TV adaptation on Sunday night, meaning the series has pulled in more viewers than ever before for a 2nd week in a row. The show's debut pulled in 4.7 million viewers upon its first airing, which was beaten by the 2nd episode at 5.7 million. The latest installment represents a 12% increase in viewership over episode 2 and a 37% jump over the premiere. So yeah, this is a very big deal. We are seeing continued and sustained growth for the HBO series. Now, I'm going to be honest, I don't follow this stuff close enough to know if this is like common or not. I'm going to make an assumption and say that it's actually not that common to see this type of growth, but what I do know for sure is that this is good news. This is very good for the show. We know that season 2 is greenlit, and people are raving about the show, specifically the 3rd episode. I will say I am all caught up now. I've seen all 3 episodes, and episode 3 was certainly very interesting. Without spoiling anything, I will say that you can tell that some significant changes have been made to this series compared to the game, and obviously it's always questionable if that should be done or not. But what I can say is that the way they handled it in this case, it was done extremely well, and the performances were absolutely top-notch. I am really enjoying the show so far, so it does make me very happy to see that many others are enjoying it as well, and it's continuing to grow. So a huge success for Naughty Dog and PlayStation Productions. Moving on to the next topic, we are talking about Marvel's Spider-Man 2. This is reading from Gaming Bolt, where they say PS5 owners have plenty of major upcoming exclusives to look forward to in 2023. But funnily enough, not many of them are first-party releases. But even though the PlayStation Studios banner currently only has 1 major release currently confirmed for the year in Marvel's Spider-Man 2, that release is obviously a massive one. In December, Insomniac and Sony confirmed that Marvel's Spider-Man 2 will be out this fall, and now, as spotted by users on Reddit, it seems that the game's marketing has kicked off already, with a brief live-action ad for Marvel's Spider-Man 2 that was recently aired on ESPN in Australia. The ad also says that the game is due out in spring, though of course spring in Australia covers September, October, and November, which aligns with the aforementioned fall launch window. Now, this is what happened before Sony actually released the full trailer called Live from PS5. This is one of the things that was featured in that trailer, and it's true that it was aired first on ESPN, where it showed off a little glimpse of Spider-Man 2, and just kind of making it clear that the marketing of this game has officially begun and is kicking off. And this is a very good sign. It seems like they might be getting a head start here compared to their other first-party PlayStation titles, but we do also have to understand that this was part of a general PlayStation 5 trailer, so I don't necessarily know that this means we're going to continue to just see more and more Spider-Man info like week over week. I don't think we're at that point yet. In fact, I think we're quite a ways away from that point, but it's still a good sign in general. And as I always say, we've seen so little of Spider-Man 2 that just anything we get, fans are automatically just on top of it and very much eager. So wanted to let you guys know about that. And the final topic we have here talks about, once again, PlayStation 5 stock increasing worldwide, with Sony once again reiterating it is now easier to find a PS5. Coming from PlayStation Lifestyle, PS5 console stock supply has been increased worldwide, making them much easier to find according to Sony, while unprecedented demand and component shortages meant that there are still some players who have been unable to secure a console since its launch. The PS5 consoles are now available at retailers globally. And this is, you know, something that we do want to highlight specifically. If you go to PlayStation Direct, what people are finding is that every version, every bundle of the PS5 is in stock and available to purchase. This is a far cry from where we were even just 6 months ago, and especially compared to the first year of the PS5. You know, people had to get notifications. They had to basically fight for it. They had to fight, you know, scalper bots, the whole 9 yards. It was very unfortunate, especially somebody who covers the PS5 here on the channel. I would see so many people expressing their frustration about how, like, man, they just wish it was easier to get one. And it's great to finally see that we are at that point where they are just in stock. Now, I don't know that this means you're guaranteed to find one at every retailer. I don't necessarily know that we're there yet, but I am seeing more and more people saying that, you know, they're walking in the stores and they're just seeing PS5s there, you know, for the first time. So I imagine that's just going to continue to ramp up, you know, as the months go by, and, you know, you'll love to see it. So there you go. That's going to do it for the video, guys. I hope you did enjoy it. I hope you did find it informative. Again, leave it a like if you did. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Hit the bell notification icon, and feel free to share this video out on top of all that. But until next time, guys, take care.